Hello, everybody, and welcome to our coaching call for this week. As you saw, of course, I had taken a hiatus. That was to involve myself in more networking groups and opportunities and really start putting together some things that would help us with building out this program. Um, that to say, I want to make sure that I do a better job um, moving forward with maintaining my own consistency in here. The topic I want to get into today is in direct kind of oversight of some of what we're going to be doing in our vision building process tomorrow, because I would like to challenge each of us, including myself, to do this one thing as part of our health vision for the year. Not necessarily the story aspect, but I'm talking more about a specific action step that can really help with not just, physical health, but most especially our mental and emotional well-being and tapping into our innate sense of community and connection. And that is get in the rooms that grow you. So this specific topic is all about how our environment and proximity to particular people and within our community shape our health, our confidence, and our capacity. Because I know that at different points in life, regardless of whether a woman has children, is planning on having children, and a family, um, or, like me, may actually have like some fertility-based issues that have us considering whether or not to even attempt to have children. Um, there are certain periods in our lives where it becomes very normal to collapse our spaces because whether it's because of family or career or both, we we reach certain capacities sometimes. And it's a very normal response to collapse our the spaces that we're in, who we're maintaining connection with, to kind of answer the question for ourselves, what matters most, when it comes to different areas of life. But when we stay in that collapsed space, are we setting ourselves up for the type of life we want to lead? Are we potentially um, staying small to our own detriment? And I would answer those questions with a firm yes. There are reasons that those seasons exist, but just like survival mode, we are not capable of sustaining that kind of environment for ourselves over the long run without negative ramifications. So, our habits, health habits, routines, they're not existent in a vacuum. They're shaped by the spaces in which we sit. the conversations that we listen to or take part in, and the expectations that either surround us and we define ourselves by, or that we create for ourselves. So when we look at our current lives, I want you to ask yourself what rooms are stretching you in a good way, and what rooms are keeping you comfortable. Now, maintaining comfort isn't wrong, but growth requires some very intentional proximity, very intentionally pulling certain people into your space, or entering spaces where you know certain people will be. Rooms aren't just going to be physical spaces either, okay? So they can be friend groups, they can be your family dynamics, they can be your work environments, but they can also be fitness spaces that have different kinds of supports in place. And I'm actually going to get more into that on another occasion. They can be online communities where you're actually reaching out and speaking to um, people who live well outside your physical area of reference. They can be coaching programs. They can be certain social media feeds. You know, what's growing you, what feels good, but isn't something that puts you in an echo chamber that would be unhealthy. Um, and then there's the internal room of our own mind, our self-talk, our beliefs, our identity. You know, we touched on identity, I think, back in July. I think I spent like basically what the whole month talking just on identity. Every room has a standard or set of expectations, and over time we'll either rise or shrink to match that. So I want to put into perspective why it is that rooms matter for our health and well-being then, and why it is that I created this community right here, our community, Vital Living Project. There are key impacts of our environments. What's normal to eat or discuss or prioritize around nutrition, what's encouraged or dismissed within different spaces regarding moving our bodies, whether whether burnout is glorified or recovery is respected, and whether for our mindset, whether growth feels safe or threatening or exciting, even if it's a little scary. We don't need more discipline. We need fewer environments that drain our energy and more environments that expect more from us, that have us rising in a way where we feel a good sense of purpose. Here's an example within like fitness. There are going to be rooms. Maybe these are certain kinds of community groups. Maybe, I mean, you might even be able to hear it in like moms groups sometimes, or direct community groups, or online spaces, or platforms. But you may hear somebody say, with respect to fitness, oh, it must be nice to work out that much. You know, where they're kind of setting the expectation that prioritizing physical fitness higher is either frowned upon or um, incapable. We'd be incapable of doing that. And then there are other rooms where the common consensus is that's just what we do. That's why gym spaces can differ so very much in terms of the culture that they create. Um, Same woman, different outcomes. And it depends on the room where you put yourself. There are growth rooms and there are comfort rooms. So, and again, nothing wrong with either. We just need to watch out for some certain things. Comfort rooms, like the potential negatives that might be in within rooms of significant comfort include things like validation of staying in the same internal or physical space, but most especially to the um, to the detriment of growth seeking. So these will be rooms, and again, rooms can be all sorts of different things, but these are those spaces in which, whether internally, like we're doing it to ourselves, or externally, somebody's telling us that staying the same is safe, staying the same is healthy, staying the same is good for them. And by that I mean we I this is an area where I have a lot of experience because of who I work with and who I have worked with in different settings within fitness. There are plenty of people I've worked with who's who had a substantial concern about incorporating nutrition changes or fitness changes for themselves, even though they wanted these things because of the potential effect on family, especially the spouse or significant other, or the worst case scenario, actually had a spouse or significant other in direct some geez, sometimes English fails me. Um, they were not going to get support for what they wanted to do. Their spouses or significant others would do the work to sabotage their efforts because changes that they wanted to make felt unsafe for the spouse or significant other. It's one reason why with every single one of my clients, we talk in depth about the kind of room that they can grow in. Comfort rooms might also soften accountability. It's one thing to create a sense of safety. It's another thing entirely to remain so safe that you're not moving forward on your goals and no one around you is moving forward on theirs. And this is oftentimes why you need to be able to define for yourself what your personal expectations are and understand what other people's expectations may be. Some of that's going to come down to good communication and actually being able to ask someone what their expectations are. Some of it is you simply being able to say to someone, these are my expectations. And remember, again, there are going to be safe people to be able to do that with. I am one of those. I am not going to poo all over your expectations for yourself, right? Comfort rooms feel familiar and they feel safe. Again, remember, there's no shame in that. You just need to be able to discern whether a comfort room is something that's going to be a detriment to what it is you want to do and who it is you want to be. Growth rooms expand on your vision or expand your vision into new horizons. They're going to normalize effort and consistency. They're going to invite responsibility without pressuring. They're probably also going to feel slightly uncomfortable at first. There is genuinely an energy that I need to um, to rise into within growth rooms. And you know how we talk about celebrating our wins. One of the wins I celebrate is um, being in that room to start with. The second win is, when I rise into that energy. Because a lot of the times that I'm stepping into a growth room for the very first time, I have zero prior knowledge about what the structure or culture of that room is. And yes, networking is one of those um, one of those key moments, particularly when I'm stepping into a new environment. Like someone has invited me to a different networking event. Not every room needs to be a growth room, but you should have at least one. That is. One of the things that I have learned most exceptionally well, and this honestly, this dates my relative understanding of this dates back into childhood. And for me, probably a little bit of innate curiosity. Um, if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's a subject we can absolutely explore. I think this month, honestly, in addition to vision, we're going to be exploring more of that kind of thing. How do we set ourselves up to grow in healthy ways? Um, we probably all know some people, and I don't think you would be in this space if you were this person, where there is not one thing in their lives that they are working to improve. And it's not to say that these different areas of life aren't good, or aren't where we um, where we can operate successfully from, or where we can exist and be present in. But some of the signs that we see, if somebody's not growing in any aspect of their lives, their habits, their behaviors start downgrading. Like there's going to probably be one area in their lives where they are legitimately dissatisfied. Because again, sometimes the growth room is just simply who we're having conversations with, or where we're doing our workouts, or what kinds of things are we listening to? Again, podcasts or social media platforms, different areas there that have become an echo chamber of hate. There's there's legitimately something negative going on that's going to start a trend of downgrading our habits and behaviors into the unhealthy range. So, the self-coaching exercise that I want for you to do as homework is to audit your rooms. Um, Really going to be good if you can do this like in writing. You're going to reflect on certain things. Where am I currently growing? Where am I staying small to stay comfortable? Where do I feel inspired versus depleted? What room have I been avoiding because it would require me to level up? Remember those expectations that certain rooms have? Then ask yourself, if I stayed in the same rooms for the next year, who would I become? I think this exercise on its own can even potentially be, combine that with our Wheel of Wellness workshop. I think those two tools right there can really help inform us as to who we want to be and what we want to experience and can actually be a good starting point for vision creation, review, recreation, across the year. And we want to create a health specific integration with this. I'm always going to try to give you something you can legitimately implement. And this is going to be in practical ways, not something sitting there in the abstract. Here are some examples of growth rooms for health. A gym or a fitness class where you're not the strongest person in the room yet. Um, a community event or environment where um, where rest and recovery are normalized. This can be that space. We can step into it more here. We can each be leaders. We can each be receivers. So I want to encourage you to bring in some of your favorite things, that you do for your health or you want to do for your health. Bring that into this room. Um, Another example of a growth room in health is a group where food is discussed without shame or extremes. Spaces where women talk about boundaries and sleep and energy. This space exists to be a growth room, one where self-trust and autonomy and intentional living are the standard, and where we're safe enough to be able to share where we may be struggling in that intentional living area. We've all got the stuff of life that will add to or take away from our attention to intentional living. Let's look at where we can expand without overwhelming ourselves. So remember that auditing your rooms, listing which rooms you're in. You don't need to leave every comfort room, and you definitely don't need to join all growth rooms. Do this one at a time. Make the transition in ways that make sense for you. Growth doesn't require chaos. Classic example of that is people who jump straight into a whole new workout plan and get themselves physically overwhelmed. Got to be able to bring real intention around all aspects. So, how are we supporting jumping into a new workout plan? How are we, um, how are we inviting new experiences into our lives? What's one room that you would be ready to enter or re-enter that's going to support the woman you're becoming? So once you've done your audit, once you've taken a look at one room that will elevate you, one room that's going to require you to grow, here's an action step that you can take. Choose one of these. Join a new conversation, whether that's in the online space or within the community around you physically. Re-engage in a space where you may have been half in or you withdrew from for whatever reason. Set a boundary in a room that's draining you. The woman you're becoming already exists. The woman that we will see as the result of our vision story, she already exists because you can imagine who she is. You just need to sit in rooms that recognize her. That's my teaching for today. Um, remember, our vision review is coming up. I will get this video uploaded into YouTube ASAP so that you've got it and our upcoming schedule. And I will see you soon.